At 2:17 this morning, Iranian state television abruptly interrupted normal programming. No warning, no explanation, a military commander walked on screen, standing beside several clerics dressed in black, and he read a statement that instantly triggered alarms across the intelligence community. Iran had chosen a new supreme leader. But that wasn't the part that made analysts stop what they were doing. The part that really shook people in Washington and Tel Aviv came hours later. Because the new leader's very first message to the United States wasn't diplomatic. It wasn't cautious. It was something else entirely. A declaration that Iran believes it is winning the opening phase of the war. And that statement came as the conflict between the United States, Israel, and Iran entered what may be the most dangerous stage yet. Tonight, we're going to walk through exactly what happened, how this war started, why the leadership change inside Iran matters so much, and the single move Tehran could make next that economists warn could send the global economy into shock. Because what happened on March 13th may end up being the moment historians point to and say, that's when everything changed. To understand where we are tonight, you have to rewind 10 days, February 28th, before sunrise. The United States and Israel launched one of the most aggressive coordinated military campaigns in the Middle East in decades. The operation reportedly struck more than 2,000 targets across Iran. Missile facilities, drone factories, military bases, command centers, and key elements of Iran's nuclear infrastructure. But during the very first wave of strikes, something happened that few analysts expected. A precision attack inside Tehran killed Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He had ruled the country for nearly 40 years. Removing him was seen by many Western strategists as potentially destabilizing the entire Iranian political system. The theory was simple. If the leadership collapsed, the regime might fracture. But Iran's political system is designed for exactly this kind of crisis. It is built to survive external pressure. And instead of collapsing, it adapted fast, very fast. Within hours, Iran began launching retaliation. Hundreds of drones and ballistic missiles targeting American bases across the Middle East. Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Iraq, the United Arab Emirates. Some were intercepted, some were not. And the Pentagon soon confirmed the first American casualties of the war. Meanwhile, global markets reacted immediately. Oil prices surged. Airlines rerouted flights around Middle Eastern airspace. And suddenly, what began as a military strike was turning into something much bigger, a regional conflict. Because wars in the Middle East rarely stay contained. And this one was no exception. Within days, Hezbollah, the powerful Iranian-backed militia in Lebanon, joined the conflict. Rocket barrages began flying toward northern Israel. In one particularly intense night, more than 200 rockets were launched. Israel responded with heavy airstrikes across southern Lebanon. At the same time, drone attacks began targeting infrastructure in Gulf countries. In Bahrain, a drone strike triggered a fire near airport fuel storage tanks. That incident sent a message to every government in the region. The conflict was no longer limited to Iran and Israel. The battlefield was expanding. Energy infrastructure, shipping lanes, military bases, civilian airports, everything was suddenly part of the equation. And that expansion is exactly what makes this war so dangerous. Because the Middle East is not just a region of political tensions, it is the center of the global energy system. Then came the political shock that changed everything. 10 days into the war, Iran's assembly of experts convened to select a new supreme leader. The decision came quickly, and the choice surprised many observers. Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the man who had just been killed. He is 56 years old, and for decades he operated largely behind the scenes within Iran's power structure. He rarely gave interviews, rarely appeared in public. And that low profile is exactly why analysts are now scrambling to understand him. But there is one detail about Mojtaba that immediately caught the attention of experts. He does not hold the rank of Ayatollah. Traditionally, Iran's supreme leader must be one of the highest-ranking religious scholars in the country. Mojtaba isn't. Which raises a critical question. If the religious establishment didn't elevate him, who did? Many analysts believe the answer is Iran's most powerful institution, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC. This is the organization that controls Iran's missile programs, its drone capabilities, its network of allied militias across the Middle East. And within minutes of the leadership announcement, the IRGC issued the first public statement pledging loyalty before Parliament, before the civilian government, before anyone else. That sequence is not random. It suggests something extremely important about the power structure inside Iran right now. The military establishment may be stronger than ever. Hours after being appointed, Mojtaba Khomeini delivered his first national address. Most international news outlets summarized the speech in a single line: Iran will continue resisting Western aggression. But when analysts reviewed the full translation of the speech, they noticed something much stronger. At one point, Mojtaba used a phrase in Farsi that translates roughly as, "a slap to America's face that history will remember." Then he listed what he described as Iran's victories in the first 10 days of war: American casualties, damage to regional infrastructure, the evacuation of U.S. diplomatic personnel from several countries. In his first speech as supreme leader, he framed those developments as successes. That tells us something very important. Iran's leadership does not believe the war has weakened them. They believe the opening phase has strengthened their position. And that perception alone makes negotiations far more difficult, because governments that believe they are winning rarely rush toward compromise. Then came the warning that has global markets extremely nervous. An Iranian Revolutionary Guard commander issued a statement that included two words analysts immediately recognized: energy war in the Persian Gulf. That phrase has a very specific meaning. The Strait of Hormuz. This narrow waterway connects the Persian Gulf to the global shipping lanes, and roughly 20% of the world's oil supply passes through it every day. If Iran were to disrupt shipping there, even briefly, the consequences would be enormous. Energy economists estimate oil prices could surge to $140 or even $180 per barrel. That would ripple through the global economy. Transportation costs would spike, manufacturing costs would rise, food prices would increase, inflation would accelerate across multiple continents. Which means the conflict unfolding in the Middle East tonight could affect people far beyond the region itself. As tensions escalate, the world's major powers are watching carefully. Russia has called for an end to military operations. China has urged restraint while protecting its energy interests in the region. The United Nations has called for immediate de-escalation. But diplomatic appeals have so far failed to slow the conflict, because the strategic goals of the main players remain unresolved. Israel wants Iran's missile infrastructure destroyed. The United States wants Iran's nuclear capabilities eliminated. Iran wants American forces pushed out of the Middle East. Those objectives are not easily reconciled, which means the war could continue, possibly for weeks, possibly longer. Several key developments are expected in the coming days. Iran's parliament will formally recognize the new supreme leader. His remarks there may reveal the direction Iran intends to take. American and Israeli officials are coordinating their next military steps, and diplomats are quietly exploring whether back-channel negotiations might still be possible. But tonight, one fact is clear. 10 days ago, the United States launched a military operation intended to weaken Iran's leadership. Instead, Iran now has a new leader, a younger leader, a more hardline leader, and a leader whose first message to the United States framed the opening phase of the war as a victory. Whether that rhetoric leads toward negotiation or toward a much wider regional conflict is something the world may find out very soon. Because if tensions around the Strait of Hormuz escalate, the consequences will not stay in the Middle East. They will reach the global economy, international security, and the balance of power for years to come. And right now, the entire world is watching to see what happens next.